My dudes, my guys, my freaking boys. I've had a few people ask me to do videos for like welding and fabrication type things. That's what I do for a living. Every time I do that, it never seems to work out, but we're gonna try this one more time. If this one does pretty good, maybe we'll make it a series or something like that. So this is gonna be how to make a roll bar, or maybe a cage basics 101, something like that. Mainly we're gonna focus on the main hoop. So I have this thing in here this week, and it's just getting a 6-point. So it's gonna have a main hoop here. It's gonna have bars that go back like that, and then door bars that go forward. This is technically a 6-point roll bar because it doesn't have the top, so it's not a cage. So I'm gonna go and show you guys how I find all the angles and measurements and yada 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 for to figure out the main hoop. This is the main thing in this video, is the main hoop. Okay, so as you can see here, I have painter's tape on the top here and here. I'm gonna explain all that. Here's all my measurements, and here's what I do to find them. So I have this little angle finder here, and what I normally do is I hold it next to like on the body and just kind of eyeball where I want stuff to be at, you know what I mean? Something like this. And so this has to be 180 degrees, so you know that. So the way I do these is I just worry about half, so I'm not even worrying about that side. You can see all my marks. There's a mark there, mark there. All these marks are on the passenger side, because all you're doing, should be completely symmetrical. There shouldn't be a car where this isn't symmetrical. For it to be as strong as possible, it all needs to be symmetrical. So we're just gonna focus on building one side. So what I did is I took my angle finder and I found this angle here. This is the angle that I like to try to keep, because when you build a cage and you have to come forward, you want this to be as tight as possible to give you the most headroom possible. So I like to try to find this angle first. This is the most important angle to me. Some guys work off this, some guys work off here. Everybody's different. So I found this angle and I thought it was 30. So what I did was I bent up a test piece, right? So I bent up a 30-degree test piece. So I put that in there and realized I didn't like the way it fit. Let me see if I can do this here. There we go. So you can see it's way off, right? So I wanted to angle it like that a little bit. And now you can see it's off a little bit right here. So that's not perfectly 90 degrees. It's about 5 degrees off, right? So I knew that going into my next test piece that I bent, which is here. So if this was at, this is gonna be at 30 degrees, then this would have had to been at 60 degrees. So I knew that this was off a little bit. So the first one, you can see right here, I marked it. I bent it at 60, and I knew that that was gonna be kind of messed up. So what I did was, I did it anyway, just to check, and it wasn't as good as I'd like it to be. So I moved it, my bad guys. So I moved it to 65, and now you can see, you want it level up there, so you can see it's like perfect. I like to get them super tight in that corner right there. So now that I know that that is at 65, this is gonna have to be at 25 to make a 90-degree angle, because that's all you're doing on one side is making a 90-degree angle. The other side makes a 90-degree, that's your 180. So I found that, and then I marked my tubes. So this is where the bend started in the die, and this is where it ended in the die. So all I do is I mark that up on the roof. That's where it started, that's where it ended. That's where it started, that's where it ended. And then I can take all of my measurements off of those right here. As you can see, 13 1/4, 13. I can take those measurements and plug them in down here. The bend radius that I ate up for the 65-degree angle, or whatever it is, the 65-degree angle was 7.5 inches. The 30 was 3.5. And then off the bottom of the 30 down was another 25 inches. So I can add all these numbers up, and that's how much tube I'm gonna need to make this main hoop. I normally give myself like an inch. I'd rather trim it on the floor than be too short. So I'm gonna go ahead, add all this math up, and then cut our tube that's over there. All right, so after adding all my math up, it's 62.5, which is 5'2.5". So we got to times everything by 2. So 5'2" would be 10'4". So 10'5", because half and a half. So I need to cut this at 10'5". Now the next important bit is to clean all the oil and stuff off this, so that your Sharpie marks stay on it. So I'm gonna go ahead, I use a Scotch-Brite pad, so I'm gonna go ahead and Scotch-Brite this whole thing. I got our center mark made. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna measure, let me set this up here. I'm gonna measure this measurement, 13 1/4, off of each end of that. So I'm gonna go from here, 13 1/4, make a mark, from here, 13 1/4, make a mark, and then load it into the tube bender. All right, now this part may seem like common sense, but it's got me a lot more than once. Okay, so we have our center mark, and we know that we need to bend here. So we're bending after that measurement. So if I was to bend to the first one, if you just like throw it in, there's my center mark. If I was just to throw it on that one, it's gonna bend this way towards your center mark. So you wanna bend away from your center mark is the way I measured. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull this line right here up to the front of this die. So let's see. So I wanna push it back a little bit like that, because I know after I get everything in there, it's gonna pull it forward some. So let me get all this stuff set up because it takes 2 hands, and then I will check in with y'all. All right, you're not gonna be able to see down in there because mine has a shadow, but I'm like dead on. This is really important to mark exactly where you want it to be if you're trying to get it as tight as possible, because after it's bent, it's bent. There's no undoing it. So I'm gonna go ahead and tighten this down, make sure that way it knows it's in place, and then start bending. Make sure you're at 0 degrees on your bender, and then we can go ahead and start working our way around. Easy peasy. All right, I may be slightly out of breath, but as you can see right there, perfectly at 65. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to mark right here, because with spring back, this is where our end is, right here. And then we're gonna go look at our paper, and we know that off that mark down to our next bend needs to be 13 inches. So let's grab our tape measure, feed it up through here, go out 13. Sorry, this is hard to do with one hand. Make a mark. So that's gonna be our next bend right there. Okay, loading this one up is the same process, except for we need to be careful with the angle here. So this needs to be at a 90-degree angle along with the bender. So if your bender is mounted weird and it's like a 5-degree angle, this also needs to be at a 5-degree angle to match what the bend is doing, or else when that next leg comes down, instead of it coming like straight, it's gonna be like crooked, like forward or back in the car. So let me grab, I have my angle finder in the car. Let me grab that guy right here and put an angle finder on it and get all that sorted. And then we can go ahead and bend it. Look at that, eyeballed it almost perfectly at a 90. You can tell I've done this a couple times, huh? All right, we're about to do our last bend. As you can see here, I have a level on there so I can watch the angle of it, because I know when I pull it, that side comes up a little bit. So pull it, make sure it's level, it looks level, so we can start bending. Yep, it's still sitting level, so we know we'll be good there. I can take this off here now, and then I can go ahead and finish out bending my 25-degree bend here. All right, let's see if you guys can remember why this isn't going to fit. You might already be able to tell. So the reason that this is not gonna be able to fit is because I cut it to be too tall, because I want to be able to trim it to the height that I want it at. So, I gotta figure out how we're gonna get this in the car first. This thing is very clean. I'm trying not to like bang it all up. It also has all of the glass in it, so it's never super ideal. All right, let me try to go in through the back seat, see if that'll be easier. Hop over that. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Yep, this will work. Maybe, come on. This is where it'd be so nice to have a second set of hands, because this thing has like immaculate paint. I don't want to mess any of it up. There we go. Cool. All right, so as you can see, we are way too tall. Way, way, way too tall. But it's gonna fit pretty well, I think. So let's go ahead and trim the feet. So let's get to that. Just gotta take a measurement. I think it's gonna be like an inch off each side. But with this, I'd rather cut it a bunch of times rather than cut it one big time, you know what I mean? So I'm gonna put this on my vertical bandsaw and cut a 1/2 inch out of each side and then try to put it in back, forth, back until it fits. So I'm gonna do that. I'll save you guys the boring part and not show you guys that. All right, we have our main hoop in. My bad, it looks kind of weird. I have it on full view, so it's kind of a fisheye, but you can see we are in here now and it is touching the ceiling all the way through. Kind of had to beat it into place a little bit, which that's fine, because I'm gonna have to take out the sound deadening right here anyway, so that'll drop it down a little bit, but then it's gonna get replaced with a plate. So what I'll do now for final fitment is I gotta clean all this up so I can put a plate in there and stuff like that anyway. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that, but before I actually install this thing, what I'll do is I'll take a flap disc to the bottom and just ever so slightly clean it up. But I mean, you can see, like, legit perfect. Perfect. Love that. So that should give us still enough room to get through here with the door bar. And to weld the tops, I'm gonna have to drop the cage through the floor. So I'm gonna have to cut a hole in the floor, drop the cage down, weld the tops, and then put it back up, put the plate, weld the floor back shut. So yeah, there's our main hoop. So okay, so now that we have our main hoop in right here, we're gonna go ahead and make our C-pillar bars, or down bars, as some people call them. So we're gonna go make the down bars. This car, technically the bar is supposed to be at least at a 30-degree angle. This thing's more of like a show car, so we're just making it comfortable and more safe than not having a cage in it, basically. So yeah, so we're gonna build this bar. We're gonna copy this angle right here, and what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna hold an angle finder up to that, and that'll tell us our angle. Just kidding, that bar's already in and it's tucked up that high. So yeah, all I did was I just found this angle here and I knew that that's what it needed to be bent at here, and then just kind of guessed where I wanted the bend to be, and it worked out pretty good. Just have to drill down through there. We're also gonna have to modify his deck lid cover, but we'll do that later. So I'm gonna go ahead and bend the other side now. So that's exactly what I did, just figured out where the bend would be, measured forward, just like the same thing we did on these. So measured forward, made a mark, measured back, made a mark, and then figured out where it would go down through, cut a hole. Always cut your hole a little bit bigger. So this is an 1 3/4 tube, since it's just gonna be a 6-point, it's 1 3/4. So always cut it bigger. I think that was like 2 1/8. And you know, if you cut it 1 3/4, tube would fit snug straight down, but this being at an angle, it's gonna have more diameter as it goes through. So the 2 1/8 is a little bit big, but it's what I had, so it works out. So gonna go ahead, cut a second piece, get that put in there, and then I'll probably fight the door bars next, because I'm not 100% sure how I want to do those. So I'll fight the door bars next, and it's just the harness bar, and then tomorrow I'll just weld everything in. That's the easy part. Okay, so both of our down bars are now mocked up, and they're just sitting in there, no welds. I still got to cut the bottoms of them and stuff, but they're both in there pretty good. So yeah, now what I'm gonna do is figure out the door bars, which I have a feeling those are gonna be kind of a pain. Let me show you why. All right, so as you can see, there's not a huge gap in between here. I think what's gonna have to end up happening is the cage is gonna have to come over a little bit and then back. So just have like a dunk dunk in it and something like that. Not really ideal, not really what you want, but you know, it's got to go through there. It's either that or cut this, but this thing's like mint interior. Like I said, this is more of a just in case cage. This isn't really like a race car, so it shouldn't super matter. But yeah, that's the only way to do it, because you don't want to mount that thing too low. I like to mount it up where the harness bar is going to be, which the harness bar is going to be somewhere in here, I think. So that's where I'd like it to be. I think that's where it's going to end up staying. But if it's got to go down to the floor, so if you go through there, you're going to have to go around that. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a measurement, and then I will cut that angle, or cut that length, and then kind of figure out where it needs to go from there. Figure out if we gotta make any modifications or not. So I'll update y'all when I figure something out. What's up, y'all? It's your boy, day 2. So I went ahead and got this notched up and got the bottom cut. You can see it's kind of where it needs to be. It's up a little high, but I left it long because when we add the bends in it, it's gonna shorten this ever so slightly. So as you can see, if I close the door, I don't know if you can see down in there, right there, yeah, the door panel's hitting. So we need to figure out something to do about that. So unfortunately, I don't really like it, but we're gonna have to come in and then out. So we're gonna have to bend in and then straight or something like that. And it's gonna have to just, the bar's gonna have to be over more. If he wants to keep the door panels, that's the only real way to do it. So, yep. That worked. Oh, it knocked it off the tube up here. So yeah, there's kind of not really a good way around it. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna close the door and go from the back door and do a mark in there where it's just about to hit. And I'll just do like a little 5-degree bend, and then I'll do another 5-degree bend back straight, and that way it'll kick around there hopefully. All right, well, I'm not perfect. I got that notched, and I wanted to do a 5-degree bend. It didn't fit, so I put a 10-degree in it, and it still didn't fit, and I had the bottom notch. So I had the bar fitting, I bent it the wrong way. So it's that easy. So now that is just wasted money. So yeah, luckily I have another one cut right here, so I can go ahead and slide that guy in and start trying it again. I won't mess up this time. So this would have worked for the opposite side because it's opposite, but it's too much of a bend. If I'd have left it at 5, I wouldn't have had an issue. I goofed up, so wasted money. It is what it is. All right, let's try to bend another one real quick. I'll get this. I'll get it. All right, we got the door bar, and it's gonna have to come up a little bit, but it just won't stay there because there's like a weird bump in the floor that I'll have to take care of. But as you can see, just barely gets around that. It touches a little bit, but that's fine. And like I said, it'll be up more, like up like this, so it'll be more protective of the driver and stuff like that. But just gotta do one more of those. One more. I don't know why I said 2. One more. All right, we got our 2 door bars bent, so that's good to go. Now all we gotta do is a harness bar, but I'm gonna wait for that. What I need to do first is get the main hoop like centered in where it's going to be, mark it, and then drill the holes through the floor, and then take the sound deadening out on the front and back and all that stuff. So basically the reason why we're doing that is so that when I put the main hoop back in, I can tack up there, and then I can drop it down and weld the tops, because as it is right now, it's so tight, like I can't even get your finger up through there. It's literally touching the ceiling. So we got to be able to lower it. So we're going to go ahead and drill holes in the floor. So I'm probably just going to use an 1 3/4 hole saw, which is not ideal. It's just what I have. Like a 2-inch one would be more ideal, but I don't have one. And I don't want to do a 2 1/8. It's a little bit big. So these ones, you just want to make sure that your main hoop is centered where it's going to be. Take a ton of measurements just to be sure, you know, everything's right before you drill it. Drill this one time, so take your time with it. A couple things to think about. Like I said, this is a permanent thing, so once you put holes in this floor, it's got holes in the floor, right? You can weld them shut and stuff, but couple things to think about is you want to make sure that your feet are in the same positions when they come down. It doesn't really matter that much for strength and stuff like that. It just matters a lot for looks. You know, if you have one down bar off the main hoop and it's like 4 inches off to the side, and then this one's like 2 inches, it looks like everything's over. But what I like to do is I like to feel up here and make sure that this is about the same gap, which it is, and then feel, and then I guess these sides are better, so you can take measurements off the door panels and it should be kind of close. It's like 1 1/4. It's like 1.5 inches. Okay, I know why that side's 1.5 inches, because that side the floor is a little bit different, and I can't get the tube to scoot over on it anymore until I trim it. So I know that's fine. The main thing I'm going to worry about here is the distance off this back shelf right here. I'm going to measure the distance on each side to try to find somewhere that looks like it'll be kind of close, because like this has sound deadening on it, that side doesn't. So I got to try to find somewhere that looks like it may match with the other side. Almost 4 inches to center. That's like almost 4 inches to center. So we're good there. And then our final check is going to be, I'm going to take our angle finder here and put it on these bars on each side. Make sure, you know, it's close to a 90-degree angle. It can lean back a little bit. You just don't want it to lean forward. So leaning back's fine. Leaning forward's a big no-no. Yeah, and we're leaning back 4 degrees, that's perfectly fine. I used to do them at 90, but I don't anymore. Okay, so what I'm going to do is mark the floors where this stuff's at. I'm kind of happy with where it's at, how far over it is on these sides. I might kick this side in a little bit, because he's still going to have to get his these panels that go in here. He's still going to have to put those back in, so I want to leave him room for that. So yeah, I'm gonna start pulling sound deadening up and stuff like that. The important bit here when drilling these holes is I'm not gonna pull the sound deadening out yet, just because I'm gonna lose all my marks if I do that. Normally I get people to bring me the cars with all the sound deadening already out. This one, for whatever reason, is still in. Another thing to think about is when you drill through here, make sure there's nothing on the bottom side. I know these cars pretty well, but you never know how people run their AN lines and stuff like that. So yeah, this one's fine, but you never know what's under there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make a hole with the pilot bit first, and then I'm going to go to the other side, and that way I can do the same exact measurement on the other side. There we go. So we're through. Now I'm going to take this, whatever measurement that's at is what I'm going to drill on the other side. That way they're matching. All right, now we have all that stuff done, so I'm gonna go ahead and drill both holes. These Milwaukee things put in work, dude. Cool. Now all we gotta do is get all the sound deadening stuff out of here, at least by a 6x6 plate, because we're gonna be putting 6x6 plates in here. So that's what I'm gonna work on next. I'm gonna get all the sound deadening up, and then get all this glue seam sealer out, so it'll be able to weld. The easiest way to get all this stuff out is with dry ice. I don't have any dry ice, so I'm going to just chip it away like this. This is normally what works best, is hit it like that, and then get a hammer. There you go, see? Like that. You can see I got the sound deadening out of the way enough, and I went with a Sharpie and marked where I got to clean. So right there. But I gotta get all this glue out the corners. Now you're probably asking yourself, how do I get the glue out the corners? That seems like a real pain. It is. Whatever you do, do not ever, don't even think about it using a flap disc. It's gonna make your life miserable. Don't use a flap disc for this. It's gonna thin the metal out. It's gonna be impossible to weld, makes it less strong, etc., etc. The list goes on. Do not use a flap disc. So I have a combination of things that I use. This is like a really tiny, fine wire wheel that goes on a drill. This is a really messed up one, as you can see. It bounces and all kinds of stuff. These wire wheels work pretty good. And then for the bulk of it, I'll use these two right here. So I'll probably hit it with this, take a bunch of chunks out, go in with that, clean it up, and then go in with this and get the very edges. So I'm gonna start doing all that stuff now. I got the front floors all prepped up. That's basically what you're looking for. You just want to get as much seam sealer out of there as you can, because you can't weld through seam sealer. So got that done. I'm gonna clean up these holes that we drilled yesterday right in there. I'm gonna go ahead and clean those up, and then set the deck lid cover back on there, mark it, cut that out, so that way I can put the bars back down through it, because they have to go through there. And then I gotta prep back here and cut these tubes. Still a lot going on, but if you thought that welding the roll cage was the hard part, you are incorrect. This is the tedious, long, hard part. All right, we have finally made it to the part to where we can start actually tack welding things. So let's do that. All right, here we go. All right, the way these are made, I kind of ended up having to lean it forward, but it is dropped through the floors, just in our holes we made. And there's all my welding. So I'm gonna go ahead, weld all that stuff now, and then pop it back up in place. Then we can get the welding floor plates. So let's get it. All right, now that we have all that welded up, we just need to let it cool off. Because if we put it back up, it's gonna burn the headliner and maybe catch a car on fire. So we're not dealing with that. So just let that cool off. Go ahead and set everything back down in place, and we can start tack welding our footer plates in and all that stuff. So alrighty, got the plates back in. Now is a good time to look from the front of the car and make sure that everything's looking kind of centered, because the next steps, it is permanently in there. So really need to take your time here and make sure everything looks right. We're all back in place. I just got to take the tape off that side, but I got the tape off that side. So I'm going to go ahead, tack the plates in, and then I'll probably tack these plates back here, and then tack weld everything. Quadruple, five tuple, whatever it's called. I'm happy with the way everything's sitting, and then I'm gonna weld it all in. So I'm gonna save y'all that part. That part's kind of boring. The only trick that I really do is on the floor plates, you can see how they have a gap. What I do with that is I put a jack under the car and jack up in that area. That way it'll fill that gap, so you don't have to weld a huge gap. A lot of people try to hammer it down, but I noticed that the plate, since it's stiffer, when you hit it with a hammer, the plate doesn't bend, but it'll bend the floor down, so it does the opposite of what you want it to do. So I'm gonna make sure that all that stuff's flat, tack weld it. I'll probably tack weld back in that corner over there and back in this corner over here, that way the plate can't move. Tack weld the bar to the plate, and then make sure, so you can see it's got a little gap right here. I'll pull the plate up, make sure everything's flush around there, tack that on, and then I'll move the floor up so I can weld all the way around it even. This side's got like a little gap right here too. I can't quite fit my finger in it. I can't get my pinky in it either, but it's got a little gap there. But these floors in this thing's like shaped like that for some reason. So like I said, what I'm gonna do, jack, pull it up even, good to go. All right, we got our back stuff welded in. Now we're gonna go ahead and go to the front and get all this stuff welded in. This side's gonna take a little bit longer because like I said, I gotta use a jack on the bottom to jack the floors up and stuff like that, so. Sorry I haven't been updating you guys. As you can see, it is dark outside and this is taking way longer than what it should. So I just had to put the camera down and get some stuff done. So the harness bar is in, that door bar is in, and all I gotta do is this door bar over here and we are good to go. The door bars actually fit pretty well. Could have done the bend a little bit different. I think it would have fit a little bit better, but it's kind of is what it is. So we got that. It's touching the door panel there, and you can still get to this. So you can still roll the windows up and whatnot. And that bar should be far enough away from his foot to not interfere with the clutch pedal and all that. So not too bad, not too shabby. Just gotta throw one more of those in and then we'll be done. I can show you guys the finished product. I'm not gonna film putting it in. It's just same thing as the rest of the stuff. Notch it, weld the plate in, and you're good to go. The only tricky thing I did was I bent the plate so it like went up onto like the firewall, I guess, technically. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and knock this thing in. Hopefully I can get this thing in the next 30, 45 minutes, something like that. So cross your fingers for me, please. Day 3, and this thing is done. All I gotta do is get my tools out of it and put the seat back in it, and then it is good to go. It looks great, fits well. So I'm gonna go in here, get all my tools out of it, vacuum it, get all the seam sealer and all that stuff out of it, and then it's ready for pickup. What a clean car though, dude. And he wanted it to, you can't really notice it had a cage in it, which like, I mean, you kind of can't. Like, I mean, you can see it, but I mean, it doesn't make the car look any less stock. So that's kind of cool. All right, let me get to cleaning up. Here it is, all said and done, all put back together. One very, very, very sleeper Civic. So like, I mean, you can kind of see the cage in there, but as soon as he paints it black, you're not really gonna be able to see it. The only thing you'll be able to see is that. That's it. So it ended up pretty nice. The harness bar is at like the right height. I know it looks like it's a little bit high here, but it's because when you sit in these chairs, your shoulders are really up here. So he's taller than me and my shoulders like somewhere in there somewhere. So harness bars at a good height. The deck lid back here came out pretty good because you guys remember we had to drill holes in that and cut that. So this just goes up here like that and sits on there, so that looks real nice. So he's gonna get the car back and put full interior in it and all that stuff, and it will be good to go. So there's that. So if y'all like more stuff like this, let me know down in the comments, please. It really helps me figure out, you know, what I want to post more and stuff like that. So yeah, if y'all stayed this long, I appreciate y'all. I'll see y'all next one. Peace.